Hi everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and this is not a sexy blue cross trainer. This is actually the most affordable BMW available for sale in the United States. Starting just under $31,000, this is the 2013 BMW X1. The model that BMW lent us is the most affordable all-wheel drive BMW available in the United States, and we have the X1 xDrive28i, which is just a fancy way of saying we have a 2-liter turbo under the hood, and of course we have all-wheel drive. The X1 is truly more of a crossover style vehicle than anything else in the current BMW portfolio because it blends this extremely long BMW classic car nose, thanks to those inline family of engines, with something that's a cross between an SUV and a, overgrown hatchback. What's deceiving here about this side profile is how small the X1 really is. This is considerably smaller than a Q5 or a Volvo XC60 or a Cadillac SRX or anything like that. It's closer in size to something like the Range Rover Evoque or the Mini Countryman. It's a little bit bigger than the Mini Countryman, but really not a whole lot. It's quite short. If you take a look here, you can see that it really just comes up to about my shoulder. Up front we have that BMW signature kidney grille, which grows ever larger with every passing BMW. We have some very angry HID headlamps. These are optional, they're not standard on the X1, and our model also has fog lamps. The X1 that BMW lent us has these unique 18-inch wheels on it because we have the $3,000 M Sport package, which includes these wheels, some suspension tweaks, stiffer springs, etc., the sport seats up front, the M Sport steering wheel, but most importantly, 255 with 40R18 rubber. That's some seriously wide rubber for a vehicle that's this size, and if you move up to the next size class, that Q5, GLK, BMW X3 size class, you'll be hard-pressed to find tires that are this wide on most of those vehicles. The unfortunate thing, however, is that BMW has not upgraded the brakes on the X1 with the M Sport package. That is something of a low point in this particular vehicle, especially if you drive it as hard as you can drive the X1, which is unexpectedly high, but we'll cover that later in the review as well. The hatchbacky theme continues around the rear thanks to that low overall profile of the X1, but also because of the sloping rear glass. It makes this cargo area in the X1 a lot less square, so that is something you should keep in mind, something we'll look at when we hop in the trunk later. Because we're in the xDrive28 model with that 2-liter turbo engine, we do have two chrome exhaust tips, but they're all the way over on the other side of the car. There are two different engines going on in the X1. In the S-Drive and the xDrive28i, we have this 2-liter, 240 horsepower turbo engine. It's direct injected and it produces 260 pound-feet of torque. Now that's mated to an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, and of course in the xDrive you get BMW's all-wheel drive system. Now the 3-liter turbo is available exclusively in the X1 xDrive28i, let's hope I got that right, and that's 300 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque, but it's not mated to the ZF 8-speed, it's mated to the older ZF 6-speed automatic transmission for whatever reason. Now while we're under the hood, I want to point out one thing that a lot of people ask about, and that's weight balance. If you take a look at this engine, you'll notice that it is fairly short, and it's also pushed quite far back towards the passenger area. You can see there's a decent amount of room between the front of the engine, which is roughly here, and the front of the car. And if you take a look over here, you can see that the axle is right about here in the vehicle. So if you look at this, the vast majority of this engine, in fact, pretty much everything except the front cover of the engine, is behind the front axle. It's quite different from front-wheel drive cars like the Mini all-wheel drive SUV. I don't know what you call that actually. It's not really an SUV, it's sort of an SUV-lit, I suppose. Because it's front-wheel drive, its engine is on top of the axle. Its engine and transmission 100% on top of the axle. It's just the way they're designed. And in this car, the engine is mostly behind the front axle, and of course the transmission is practically in the middle of the vehicle between the driver and the passenger. That makes the weight balance in this vehicle a lot better than something like that Mini or something like an Audi, which has the engine almost entirely in front of the axle and the transmission more or less under the hood somewhere. The X1 looks very much like every other BMW on the market, from the seat shapes and designs to the door styling to the dashboard styling. This is instantly recognizable as a BMW product. The dashboard is of course dominated by this large high-resolution iDrive screen, but unlike some of the other BMW products, this dashboard isn't a soft touch dash like it is in the other products. It's a hard injection molded piece that's then covered in a very thin layer of soft touch material, so it feels somewhat different than the other BMW products. And down here lower in the dashboard, we have a decent amount of hard plastics. In fact, everything lower than this black portion of the dashboard is a hard plastic. Here we have the dual zone standard climate control in the X1, and of course we get our radio controls. Now, these radio control buttons feature both push buttons and intelligent touch buttons. So if I hover my finger over that button, just lightly touching it, it'll tell you what that button does. Now if we continue further down on the dashboard, you'll see that we have our Eco Pro button that softens the throttle response to supposedly give you better fuel economy. We have our parking sensors. That's because our car has that particular option. It's not standard. Of course, we get hill descent control, our stability and traction control off, and this button disables the automatic start-stop feature in our 2-liter turbo model. Now, unlike other BMW products, the USB port is not hidden away in some secret cubby, so it's right there in the middle of the dash where you can see it. We have the same BMW gear shift as pretty much every other BMW product. Has a very nice feel, especially for the lowest cost BMW on the market. Of course, get the same iDrive controller as every other BMW product on the market as well. Now, we have one cup holder here, which does handle a large American-style takeout soda, and we get our center console, which opens up to reveal BMW's typical phone docking station here. There are certain Android, BlackBerry, and iPhone adapters available, and this is where the other cup holder hides. You have to pull it out of there and then dock it into its little dashboard slot to use it. Now, it does hold a large soda as well, and it is relatively secure. However, if you look at this from the passenger perspective, your knee would be hitting that an awful lot, and that is quite uncomfortable. Our passengers did complain about that, so it did spend an awful lot of time in the center console. It is, however, handy to put your phone in, I discovered. Since our model has the M Sport package, we of course get the M Sport steering wheel. Take a closer look at these buttons over here. There's volume up and down, voice recognition, phone button over here. This button changes your media, track up and down. Of course, in BMW products, down means next track and up means to go back to your previous track. And this button has nothing to do with the audio system. That's actually the recirculate function on the air conditioning. We of course get shift paddles back here for that ZF 8-speed transmission. And of course, cruise control ends up on a little stalk over there. And that stalk up there is our headlight and turn signal control. And then over on the right, we get our wipers. You won't find any gorgeous color LCDs going on here in the X1. It is quite minimalist, just like the regular BMW 1 Series. We have our fuel economy gauge over there, which I think is a little bit silly. I think I'd rather have a temperature gauge. We get our tachometer. Of course, we get a large speedometer and our fuel gauge over here. We get, of course, trip computer information right in the center. And although this does show that we've been averaging 21.7 miles per gallon, our true average over about 600 miles with this vehicle is just under 23 miles per gallon, which is pretty good for an all-wheel drive car. Front seat comfort in the X1 is very good, and if you add the M Sport package, things get even better. If you can take a look down here by my thigh, we get an extending thigh bolster in the X1 with the M Sport package. We also get inflatable side bolsters on the seat. So these side bolsters right here, they inflate to hug you into the seat. We of course get 3-way adjustable lumbar support as well, and that uses 3 different air bladders, one in the middle and one lower and one higher, and they inflate. So you can't inflate all 3 at the same time, but you can inflate one of the 3 at one time to adjust your lumbar. That's different than some cars where they use one lumbar support mechanism that actually goes up and down. This one you really just have 3 positions to choose from, but it's better than no adjustability at all. We also get a multi-way power seat for the driver and a tilt telescoping steering wheel with a decent range of motion. Rear seats are almost never as comfortable as the front seats, and that's true here in this car as well. These rear seats are very firmly padded. There's not a whole lot of cushioning going on, so you don't really feel like you sink into the seat. We do have reclining seat backs, however, in the X1, and they go from this very vertical position where, you know, I really wouldn't want to sit in that, but you could if you had to. And the reason this exists is, of course, so you can square off that cargo area to put larger cargo in the vehicle, to a fairly reclined seating position. It's not quite as reclined as some of the larger competitors in this segment, but again, there's really not a whole lot that competes with the X1, so this is quite unique. Helping you carry cargo, if I move over to the middle seat, you can see the middle seat's not extraordinarily comfortable in its own right, and we do have a fairly severe hump thanks to the architecture of the X1, but this middle seat section folds in a 40-20-40 folding arrangement, so you can put large items in the car and still have 4 passengers in the vehicle. The X1 is not a terribly large vehicle, but legroom is not as bad as you might think, thanks to the upright position of the vehicle as well as the upright seating position. This front passenger seat is adjusted for a 6'5" passenger I had in the car earlier, and they have their seat all the way back in its track. I can still fit back here behind this seat. I wouldn't exactly call it comfortable because my knees are touching the seat back, but they're not really pressing into the seat back, and I could probably do this for, you know, some time on a car trip. The X1 scores 6 out of 10 points in our exclusive trunk comfort index because it is a bit of a squeeze back here. Now, it's obvious that there has been a little bit of cost cutting going on back here in terms of materials quality in the trunk, especially when you compare it to something like the Range Rover Evoque. Keeping in mind that that Range Rover Evoque does cost about $10,000 more than the X1, I think that's an acceptable trade-off. Now over here we have the largest roller bag you can carry on a domestic flight. We were able to easily fit 4 of those in the car. There's also a little bit of extra storage under this trunk floor if you lift it up, but you won't find a spare tire under there. It's can affix a flat only in this vehicle, and of course there's also the battery back there. We're going to go ahead and take a look at BMW's iDrive. That's what BMW calls their navigation and infotainment system. If this doesn't interest you at all, then you can skip ahead to the drive section. Just go ahead and look down here for the time you should skip ahead to and join us there. Now, every iDrive system uses a high-resolution screen. The size of the screen varies from vehicle to vehicle. In our X1 here, we have one of the smaller screens available, but we still have this high-resolution 3D map going on here. And the system is very logically laid out. We have that iDrive controller in the center console. It's a knob, and it moves side to side. So if you want to move to this right side of the screen, you just click the knob right, and you move over there, and you click it further and you get those menus. Everything is fairly nicely laid out, and you can tell that you can click over there because you get this little icon right here. If we click all the way to the left, you'll see more buttons, and this little button right here indicates that you can click to the left yet again, and then yet again, as you can see, to go all the way back to the main menu. Navigation is very good. The voice commands work extraordinarily well in this particular system. Very easy to use. Telephone interface allows you to do text messaging with your Bluetooth phone, if your phone supports it, of course. We get AM, FM, and satellite radio in our X1 as well. In CD multimedia, you'll notice this is what's new about the latest generation of iDrive, is that now they call it media as well, and we have a media direct access button in our iDrive controller to take you right to your media input device. Now we have, of course, Bluetooth streaming, we have that auxiliary input, and of course we have, fairly unique to BMW, this plug-in option. That again is that dock in that center console that I showed you earlier. You can get various dock shoes for your various devices. iDevices are heavily supported by BMW, and when you plug them in there, you get access to a few other commands if your iDevice supports it. Oddly enough, the brand new BMW, or brand new iPhone 5, I should say, does not support the latest in plug-in interfaces. Now over here on USB, we have our iPhone plugged in, so of course we get album art. We can browse our playlists, we can search through our iPod for artists, for songs, etc. We also now have in this version of iDrive the ability to voice command searches for tracks and for artists. We cannot, however, voice command searches for playlists. It's quite similar to Mercedes Command in that respect. If we go back to the main menu, one of the most controversial features of BMW's iDrive system is their latest connected drive option. So we click on connected drive, you can see right now we're in Facebook, and you can have it read Facebook posts to you. You can have it post Facebook posts to your Facebook wall. These are canned posts, however. You can't just say whatever you want to say. It pulls information from iDrive, it mines it literally, and then uses that to construct canned messages like, I just talked to so-and-so on the phone, or it will pull your temperature from your car's thermometer and say, I'm driving through San Mateo and it's 56 degrees outside. You can also check your news feed, you can see who's nearby, and you can check for events on this system as well. You have also the similar options for Twitter. You can view the calendar on your phone, you can check news. This is one of the BMW news services. It pulls that over your data service on your phone. Wiki Local is quite an interesting feature. You can actually use this Wiki Tour Guide to find information about things near you, and you can have it read the Wikipedia article to you. So right now you can see we're in Millbrae, and you can choose text-to-speech, and the car will start reading
Millbrae Station, also known as Millbrae Intermodal Terminal.
You can see there it's actually kind of an interesting feature if you're driving around on a car trip. I found myself using the Wiki tutorial feature, or Wiki Tour Guide, or whatever they call it, most often. As far as feature sets in BMW Connected Drive. The BMW apps will set you back $250 in addition to your regular navigation bump up from the base price. You of course get web radio, and as you would expect, all these services use data services on your phone, so your smartphone needs to have those data services available, and you have to have the BMW Connected app loaded on your smartphone. iDrive also offers a trip computer. In addition to that trip computer you see in between the gauges, we also have vehicle status, so you can check the health of your vehicle, various categories here like check your engine oil level. This is the only way you can check your engine oil level in certain BMW products. You can check and see when your next service is required, etc. BMW's addition of voice commands for your music interface in the iDrive system really brings the iDrive back to the top of the pile in terms of feature content. It was always up there in terms of elegant looks. You can see these graphics really have a very nicely polished look to them. definitely more polished than basically any other entry in this segment, definitely almost any entry period on the market right now. But with those voice commands that they've added to that system, it brings it nearly to the level of functionality that you would experience in Ford MyTouch or Lincoln MyTouch. The only difference is that we don't have the ability to voice command climate control settings in this particular system, and we don't have the ability to voice command playlists yet. Expect those to happen at some point, I'm sure, with BMW, but at the moment BMW's iDrive is definitely worth that option. If fuel economy is a main concern for you, then get the two-wheel drive 2-liter turbo X1, because it gets 24 miles per gallon city and 34 on the highway. And that's thanks to both not having the all-wheel drive system as well as having electric power steering. Now, all the all-wheel drive models get hydraulic power steering, so you get a little bit more steering feel, and of course you get a reduction in the fuel economy. But it's not as big as you might think. The fuel economy in our particular model is 2233, so it's about 2 miles per gallon in the city and only 1 mile per gallon difference on the highway. That's because the system adds about 200 pounds to the car. Of course, if you opt for that 3-liter turbo engine, your fuel economy is going to drop even further, and so that is something to keep in mind. We're out here on the highway because our 2-liter turbo model, despite having a 33 mile per gallon highway rating, averaged about 35 miles per gallon on a relatively long highway trip. It's about 50 miles, ranging speeds from 70 miles an hour to 75 miles an hour with the cruise control and the air conditioning on, which is extraordinarily good for a 3,700-pound SUV. There's a downside, however. The X1 isn't as quiet on the highway as the BMW X3 or the 3 Series. In fact, it's not even as quiet as the BMW 1 Series out on the road. It's notably louder than the Buick Encore, but it is quieter than the Mini Countryman. Minis have never really been known to make the quietest car on the road, and the Countryman is fairly loud. It's definitely louder than this on the road. Now, BMW has spent a decent amount of time sound deadening the engine in this car because a direct injection 4-cylinder engine is not the most refined sound you've ever heard, and it's not too bad in this car, although there are a number of cars that do a decent amount more in terms of sound deadening. The fortunate thing is that the sounds that you can hear sound pretty good, and this ZF 8-speed transmission is really a welcome partner out on the road. The shifts are extraordinarily fast and crisp, and the engine doesn't sound half bad when you're revving it. On the downside, again, however, everything must come with a positive and a negative. On the downside, for some reason, BMW has not programmed this ZF 8-speed to hold your gears. So it will upshift and it will downshift for you if you apply full throttle, or if you're about to hit the rev limiter, it'll go ahead and upshift for you. From a standstill, there's a little bit of turbo lag followed by a whole lot of acceleration. This engine is a willing partner, again thanks to that 8-speed automatic in this car. The shifts are lightning fast, and that really helps the acceleration time. What also helps the acceleration time are the gobs of torque available from this engine, and it's available over a very broad range. If you're used to a V6 or another naturally aspirated engine, this is not only a replacement for the V6, it's honestly better because you get all that torque from around 1,500 RPM to over 5,000 RPM in this engine. It's extraordinarily broad. It does taper off on either end a little bit, and of course there is that turbo lag right there from idle right up to full torque entry at around 1,500 RPM or so, but it's not terribly noticeable when you're out driving on the road. It's just an absolute gem of an engine. The suspension in the X1 is firm, especially in our M Sport model, but unlike some reviewers, I don't find it overly harsh. A number of reviewers have complained that even the base X1 suspension is just a little bit too harsh from them. I really don't have a problem even on these fairly worn roads of Northern California, and we have some pretty terrible roads up here. I don't find that to be a problem with the X1. What I do find to be a little bit of a problem, but it's something that I could get used to, is the stiff steering. Every model of X1 has extraordinarily stiff steering, and it does make parking lot maneuvers a little bit tiring on the arms. However, when you're on your favorite country road like this, it is kind of a welcome companion. And again, our all-wheel drive models get hydraulic power steering, which means we get a decent amount more feedback than you do in that base rear-wheel drive 2-liter turbo model. Well, it is true that the X1 is the most affordable BMW in the US. That's a very relative term. They start at $30,800 without destination tax, insurance, etc. Now, our particular model here is just over $45,000 as equipped with the M Sport package, all-wheel drive, and a few other goodies. If you want that xDrive28i for that 300 horsepower and all the options, then you're going to need to expect to pay around $53,000 for that most expensive model of the X1. That's a decent chunk of change, and it puts the X1 in direct competition with a wide variety of other BMW products like the 3 Series, the X3, etc. So for the same price as you get a fully loaded one of these, you could have a decently loaded X3 or BMW 3 Series. So that is something to keep in mind. However, there really is nothing else like this on the market. The Mini Countryman doesn't come close. The Q5, the BMW GLK, the Volvo XC60, they're all much bigger than this car. And this thing also handles like it's on rails. Incredibly good handling vehicle. Does not handle like an SUV at all. In fact, it really just handles like a slightly taller BMW 1 Series, which is exactly what it is. The 2013 BMW X1 is probably the most compelling vehicle in the BMW lineup in America right now for me personally. And that's because for $45,000, the blend of performance and handling and creature comforts in this vehicle is absolutely excellent. If you compare this to anything else on the market for about this price range, this performs very well regardless of size and regardless of brand. The handling is absolutely extraordinary in this vehicle. The fuel economy at 23 miles per gallon average really isn't that bad for a 2-liter turbo. Part of that's, of course, how we've been driving this vehicle. Straight line performance is excellent, ranging from between 6.3 to 6.5 seconds to 60. And again, $45,000 is a decent value. If you compare this to that Mini Countryman, you get an awful lot more in this vehicle. You get a much nicer interior, you get better performance, better handling, etc. You, of course, get a BMW logo on the front. If that means anything to you, I don't know if it means that much to me versus the Mini logo. And I think this vehicle is a lot more attractive than that Mini Countryman as well. Versus the Range Rover Evoque, I really like the Evoque, but it is $10,000 more expensive than this vehicle, and it doesn't perform quite as well. The interior is a lot nicer than this vehicle, but again, it costs $10,000 more, so you should keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that the X1 leases strangely cheaply. So I believe one of the current lease deals right now is right around $300 with about $3,000 to $4,000 down, depending on your credit. That's a decent deal for a vehicle like this. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this is the 2013 BMW X1. Go ahead and click on that subscribe banner at the bottom of the video and you'll be kept up to date about all our latest vehicle reviews. Of course, comment in the comment section down below. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like about this video, what you'd like to see us review, or you can go ahead and send us an email on YouTube as well.